To the cloud. All right, everybody. It looks like everybody's starting to log back in, and that's great. We're going to give everybody a second to kind of join and get back into the Zoom system. Get ready to crop for a while. I know, although most of you have already been there for a bit. So, there we go. Okay. Okay. All right, everybody. Getting a couple here, a couple there. We'll give everybody until about 7:05, and then we'll kind of get started.
Hey, Bree.
Hello. How we doing?
Okay.
Excellent. I'm just kind of giving everybody a couple minutes to get sorted in here because I know there's been some transitions between, we have to kind of, everybody's got to log out and log back in and, you know, a little bit of logistical stuff. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, everybody. So we're looking at about 7:05. I figure we're sort of in the dinner hour for a lot of people, so maybe some people kind of drop in and out throughout the evening. But my plan is to be here for a good long time while we're waiting for Jennifer for the kind of inaugural night crop. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Breon Randon. I kind of am a residential digital scrapper here at the Simple Scrapper. And so when I saw the call to host crops, I wanted to take some time out to do a little bit of a digital scrapbooking question and answer period and maybe have open to some tips and tricks if anybody is interested in that sort of thing. And of course, you know, the more the merrier. It doesn't just have to be digital friends here. So everybody, you know, create what makes you happy. But in the meantime, I'll be over here working in the digital space and just, you know, being here for any questions that you might have about you know, digital scrapbooking. I do work in the Photoshop suite. I know a little bit about elements and things like that, but it is not my primary software. Let's just get some housekeeping out of the way. This crop is being recorded and will be available later on the website, just so that everybody's aware and we don't do anything too crazy at our party. So that will be coming up on the Simple Scrapper website later, so everybody else can kind of get a recap. You all have the ability to mute and unmute yourself. So we also have the crop over here. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom, there's a chat button. for those of us who haven't used that before. It'll pop out and you can kind of just type in there if you have any questions, you have any concerns. That'll also be the place where we do a little bit of a giveaway later. We have a wonderful gift certificate from the Tracy Reed, who is at Sweet Shop Designs. For those of you who know anything about digital scrapbooking, she has been around a good long time and is a fantastic designer, very high quality products. So there is sure to be something that you want there if you're interested in trying digital scrapping, or if you've already been doing so for quite some time. She actually has a new kit out and I was just looking at it. I'm like, ooh, that looks great. Then again, everything looks great, and I'm a terrible shopper, so I'm an enabler of the first accord. So I take no responsibility for your future shopping issues. So we're all here for the 10th anniversary party, which is going to rock. It's a whole weekend of fun. I'm happy that you're all here, and I can see everybody here, but who do we have? Who do we have here that's new for Simple Scrapper? Who's, is anybody brand new to the team here? I'm trying to look over here in the chat. Do I do any hybrids? Do I do any hybrid scrapbooking? I actually started my digital journey through hybrid scrapbooking back before hybrid scrapbooking was even a thing. So I can talk a little bit about that. Kathy, I'm not really sure why you can't hear. There should be a button that says to join with audio. Is anybody else having any issues hearing me?
No.
No.
No, we're okay. Hi, Shannon. It's nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, Betty Lou has a point. What platform are you on? Are you on an app? Are you on are you on your computer? Kathy, if you can type in the chat and let us know, maybe we can try to troubleshoot a little bit. Also, usually the first thing I say is to log in and log back out, or log out and log back in. That usually fixes most connection issues as far as audio. Not all of them, but a good majority of them. Okay, there you go. That's great. I'm so glad to have you, Kathy. And for those of you who weren't here in the first couple minutes, you do have the ability to mute yourself. You also have the ability, and this is all on the left-hand side, you can either mute or stop your video. I would ask that for those of you who are, if you're a fan of scrapbooking to music or you have your TV on, that either use headphones or mute yourself, just so that, because we get a lot of feedback issues with Zoom when we're doing other outside noises. So I'd like to make sure everybody can hear everything. So, yeah, so the first things first today, for those of you that have been with Simple Scrapper, if everybody wants to go around and kind of say what you like about Simple Scrapper, and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be great. I'll start real quick. I'm Bree, and I am a digital scrapbooker. I have made my path from hybrid to paper to digital over the last almost 20 years, and I look forward to hanging out with everybody here. Honore, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Honore.
There you are.
I've been with Simple Scrapper easily 5 years, and shortly after, I think it's been longer than that, 20 years ago, maybe not quite that long, I thought I would try to learn to be a digital scrapper, and it made absolutely no sense to me. And so I've never given it another shot. I'm glad Bree is close by because I intend to pick her brain.
It's going to happen one of these days, Honore. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I know. So, but this is a great organization to belong to because it really does reflect the membership. That's what I like about it. It's very personable. So welcome and look forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Ina?
Ina.
Ina. I always say it wrong, Sweets. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You want to tell us a little about yourself and how you are, what you like about Simple Scrapper?
Oh, okay. I was like, I just got here.
Yeah.
About myself as a scrapbooker, I started with digital scrapbooking, and then I felt like I was spending too much time in front of the computer, and I couldn't resist all the pretty papers and stickers. So now I scrap physically, like paper scrapbooking. About myself, I've got 2 kids, 9 and 6. They're in the other room. I'll tell them to be quiet.
Yeah, I sent mine upstairs.
Yeah. And then what I like about Simple Scrapper is it's a lot of fun, and it kind of keeps me being able to keep scrapping.
Yeah.
It's just more motivating.
Yeah,
when you're doing it with other people.
It's great to have a team behind you. All right, Kelly, would you like to share a little bit? Kelly?
Sure. I've been a Simple Scrapper for years and years and years now. I was on the design team for about 3 years, and been taking a break lately. Life has gotten really busy and needed to have a little break. So this is the first time I've scrapbooked in probably 5 months. So I'm really excited to be getting back to it. And it's fun to just be here with everybody and seeing everybody scrapping.
I agree. It is nice to have everybody. Trish, would you care to share a little bit?
Sure. I started scrapbooking in the 80s with Creative Memories. I had moved across the country and I was looking for some friends with the same kind of interests, and I hit upon a couple ladies who really helped me learn about scrapbooking. I stayed with scrapbooking paper-wise because it works for me. I tried a couple of digital things and I was more than a complete failure with it. So, and I think, if I'm right, I've been with Jennifer probably since she started with it. So maybe 8 or 9 years. And I found that for me, she is clear, she's concise, she explains things very well. And she just has a great personality. So I really appreciate all the things I've learned from her.
Oh, and I think Jackie joined us.
Hi.
Hi, Jackie. Would you care to share a little bit? Have you been with Simple Scrapbooking for a while?
I think about 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my name's Jackie. I'm from Tyler, Texas. And I like Simple Scrappers because Jennifer includes everything, to make it fit in your life and what fits you and works for you, and not just here's a layout. Mm-hmm. And I do all the types of scrapbooking, digital, paper, hybrid. I go according to whatever project I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
What
the story
fits
calls
that
for, right?
project. Yeah. And I really I'm new at the Zoom group, though. I haven't been here but once before.
Oh, you'll be old hat in no time. Because consider this 2-hour training session is all about your Zoom indoctrination. So
yeah, I think so.
All right. Who else? Okay, I think Judith is up next if she cares to share. Judith, would you like to share with us? You might not. Not everybody does. So, well, in the meantime, if we want to, is Kathy around? Okay. And, well, we've got Betty Lou, but I think that she muted herself. So if she feels like
herself, she just is like making noise because she's doing chores. I did look up today. I have been active in Simple Scrapper since 2015, so only a couple of years. But I think our switch to Mighty Network was that just this summer?
Oh. Yeah, just this summer.
That was like so awesome, and it's like totally a more active group, and I am much happier and having a good time and more productive.
Mm-hmm. Lots to do for sure. All right. And then of course, Kim. There we go. Oh, and then I think, Judith, did you want to say something now? I see you typing. It's totally fine if you don't, not a problem at all. And then
Me.
There you go. I was gonna say, Patricia's up next. We got her. How we doing?
I'm Pat from just north of Detroit. I've been a digital scrapper since about 2006. I was paper and had a bad experience with a photo, so I switched. And I've been with Simple Scrapper since 2010, 2011. I've got files back that far that I saved forever of theirs because I was going to do something with them, but you know.
That's the story.
But I love my Simple Scrapper. I loved Simple Scrapper, but the new community and the new camaraderie and the ability to meet people from everywhere and share our stories and our laughs and our trials and our tribulations just makes it so great, because not all your friends know what you're doing or care. So you want people who like you, you know. It's like, I could never do that. Yeah, you could. No. Well, then fine. Go away. You bother me. But
Yeah.
I just love it. I love it. And that's all I have to say.
There you go.
But not usually, but that I'll stop.
No, we'll get you later. You'll talk more.
Oh yeah, you know that, don't you, Bree?
I do. Well, it looks as though Judith decided to join us via chat, and she says she has recently started digital scrapbooking about 3 years ago when her husband passed away, and she was near all of her supplies. Her favorite part of Simple Scrapper is the classes, and I have to say I agree, Judith. I love all the classes. It really keeps me on point. So I'm glad that you shared. First of all, it's wonderful to have somebody chatting with us, and I do agree. Those classes are just fantastic. So
yes, definitely.
You know, that's awesome. And I'm sorry, I might say this incorrectly. Is it Carmel? I know that. Did you want to say something, dear? Because you were chatting on the side here. Okay.
Muted.
That's all right. That's all right. Kathy S., did you want to say something? Maybe share a little bit? Well, in the meantime, we have Crop Queen, who is muted, so I'm just trying to make sure I give everybody a chance. Who's Pat, I believe.
Yeah, I'm here, Bree.
There's Pat. Hi, Pat.
I labeled myself as a hybrid scrapbooker. That's because I do all of my journaling on the computer. I've been known to get make stickers or go online and copy stuff. I do a lot of pictures, interspersed with my paper scrapping. I don't know if that's true hybrid, and I think Bree may teach me a little bit more about what hybrid really is and what else I could be doing.
You can do all sorts of things.
I don't know that I'm going to do my whole layout the way you do. That looks very tedious.
Well, that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be the way I do things. It's all about you guys, and it's just figuring out what tips and tricks can make your life a little easier. You know, truthfully, digitally may not be for you, but there's such a wide range of degrees. I think people have a thought of what they think digital scrapbooking is. And there's such a wide range of things that go between here and there that, you know, it's really what works for you. So we can talk a little bit about that once everybody gets a chance to, you know, kind of chime in and talk about themselves. I think next up on my list, we have Bonnie. Bonnie just joined us. Does she want to say something? You can just introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about what you like about Simple Scrapper. There we go. She did just join, so I'm trying to give everybody a chance, and you know, I'll catch back up with you if you're on there. How about Debbie S? Debbie, did you have anything you wanted to say? All right. And then we got Dion. There we go. And I know we got to miss Natalie. Natalie, you want to come talk to us?
Well, I think everybody will hear enough from me tomorrow, to be honest.
I mean, that's true, but let's get a little introduction going.
Okay. I started scrapping back in 2002, and I also started off with Creative Memories, traditional paper sort of thing. And actually, the ladies who started off with me and the lady who was my Creative Memories consultant will be coming over to my house tonight because we still get together to scrapbook once a month. And even when I was living overseas, these two ladies would take a day off work if they knew that we were coming back to Canada for a visit, and we'd scrap together. So I am all about the community and the getting to know one another. So that is very much my favorite thing at Simple Scrapper. I think this is a place for everybody, every type of scrapper, every style, every format. It's just getting together with like-minded creatives and sharing and inspiring and supporting one another. And I loved what somebody else had just said about, you know, sharing things with people on here who actually get it, that, you know, your friends might not know what you're doing or how exciting it can be to sort of nail down this one layout or this element or this part of this story. But yeah, I really enjoy the community.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing, Natalie. I appreciate it. Kathy S. has said that she has been a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Ontario, Canada. She's working with two neighbors on scrapbooking and card making. So, well, thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, I need to ask where you are in Ontario because I am also in Ontario.
I knew that was coming.
It's only because you're a wannabe Canuck.
Canadians!
Woo!
There we go.
Other side of Toronto.
There. And then, okay, we have Sandy Bones, which I'm kind of loving your, if that's a screen name, I'm all for that. And if not, hello, Sandy. We have Shannon Fowler. And then, oh, Dion says she's also from Ontario, from Mississauga. And then I believe the last person that I have not had a chance here is Wendy. If you wanted to share a little bit about yourself and what you like about Simple Scrapper, you're more than welcome to. Okay. Okay. Well, anybody, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing with us and kind of introducing yourself. As somebody had mentioned, we just kind of transformed to this new platform where everybody is really just getting the chance to get to know one another, and that is my favorite part of Simple Scrapper. I held off for a long time on actually becoming a paying member because, you know, we all kind of push back on the subscription model and things like that, but I have to say, as soon as we left Facebook, I joined right away. I knew that's what I wanted. And yeah, I just took that chance to, yeah, I just took that chance to make sure that we all, you know, I wanted to kind of have a community and have people to scrapbook with, because one of the downsides to being digital is that you really do sometimes miss that community. And I feel that I found that here. And I know that some of my other digital ladies, as well as our paper and hybrid and everybody else ladies, are really glad to have that touch tone back. So welcome everybody. So the theme of our crop today is really just digital questions and answers. And so the first thing I wanted to do is, for those of you, like I did say, I am primarily in Photoshop. So I will be giving tips based on Photoshop, but many of these are translatable over to, they're also translatable to Photoshop Elements, but not everything will be. So I will share what I know, and then everybody else can, of course, chime in. And I'm going to go ahead and share my Photoshop right now, and let me know if you can see everything when I do it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share right now. And can you see my actual Photoshop, or do I have to?
No, it's good.
Yes, we got it.
And
I got
it. It's there.
Okay. So the first thing that I think that I think a lot of people don't realize about Photoshop is that you can change what is showing in your actual software. There is a window, because I know a lot of these tools are overwhelming, and you know, as a digital scrapbooker, you don't use all of the tools in Photoshop. I mean, you can, but it's not the first. That's something that happens over time, and you start, you know, finding out ways to use things like the pen tool and the warp brush and all that. But really, when you get started, the main thing you have to do is open a new document and plop your paper and your photos down, and then you just hit Control-T and transform, you know, the size of your photo, and you don't really have to make it super complicated. But the first thing that I like to let people know is that Hold on, I'm getting a chat here. There we go. That'll be Shannon. I'll go back to that in a moment. I apologize. That's the first time I've done this. The first thing is that this is the window tab. So as you can see, I don't have even half of everything clicked open because that would be super overwhelming, right? So when you find what works for you, the thing that I would suggest is you'll see here there's also a workspace tab. When you find all the tools that you know that you use, I would suggest going ahead and saving under new workspace and then titling that. So say, Natalie has hers, Natalie desktop 1. And that way, each time you come into Photoshop, you can go ahead and it will eventually the preferences will save that way eventually, but you can have your own desktop available so you don't have to start from scratch every time figuring out what it is you use and dealing with all of these tools and windows that you don't really have an interest in and that overwhelm you and may stop you from starting. So I didn't know that existed for a long time. And I just like to make sure that as a very basic thing, that is something that I share with everybody. Does anybody have any questions about the window tab? Okay. And then the second thing, since I am sharing Photoshop, is that I'm going to go to this right now. The main thing about Photoshop and the main place you do most of your work is the layers palette. And I keep mine up on the top because, clearly that's something that I use for every single section of digital scrapbooking. Each layer is an item that you've placed on your document. So it can be the background paper, which you'll see here I can turn on and off. It can be a piece of paint or a spider web. Each one of these is a layer. Now, the thing that I found when I first became a digital scrapbooker is that I couldn't see anything. I didn't know. I mean, honestly, I would put all this stuff on the page, but when it came over to the layers palette over on the right-hand side here, none of this stuff made any sense to me. And I didn't know what I was moving. I didn't know what I was trying to recolor. And I just visually found it very difficult. And I worked that way for many years, and it made me very slow and very overwhelmed and a little frustrated. And one day I accidentally clicked here and I realized that there is all these things here. There's this whole nother pull-out menu. So naturally, Photoshop defaults to something called small thumbnails and clipped document bounds. And you'll see here that each of these squares just looks white. So when you're trying to scrapbook and you're trying to find your star, or you're trying to find your pumpkin in this case, good luck, right? I mean, you're never going to see it, and it's just not very helpful. So something that actually made sense to me much later is that not only can you change the size of it, which I change it to large, which is a little better, right? You can, you see a little bit, you can see that there's something there, but overall, still most of these things are very small and not visually easily identifiable. The next thing I realized is that you can also change how the layer is clipped. And what that means is it's how Photoshop recognizes how big this item is. When it's on, there's two choices: click thumbnails to layer bounds and click thumbnails to document bounds. And essentially, when it defaults to document bounds, it's going to go to the full size of your page. So this whole big square, and that's why everything is tiny. But if you change it to layer bounds, you'll see that all of a sudden, ooh, my photo pops up and my card pops up, my spider web, my label, my date, and these are much more identifiable. And so you can actually easily move them around because Photoshop is recognizing the edge of your element and not the edge of your document. And I found that this was one really simple trick, like a preference to just change, that made it honestly saved me hours of scrapbooking because my eyes aren't super great. And, it's these little things that can kind of save you over time. So that was something that I really enjoyed learning, even if it took me like 10 years. So did anybody have any questions about any of that, or? There we go. Okay. Oh, Shannon.
Yes, I do.
Oh yeah, sure.
I started to type something, but
It's okay.
If I've only digitally scrapbook with a template.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very helpful to know that the layer that is in this location is the one that you're trying to put the photo in. And I click to the bounds of what?
I can go right back. Actually, I can also open a new template if that makes it easier for you versus my, I will just open a template real quick. Give me a second.
Okay. Because
that way
I could do both. I suppose I could switch it back and forth.
Oh, you can easily switch it back and forth. So I'm going to just start a template with 2 things just so we can, this is an old school template, I believe. There we go. Opening up in Photoshop, and I'll share my screen again. And then if you can talk me through what would help you best, I am all about that. Give me 1 second to desktop and share. Okay. I am going to minimize there we go. We are back in Photoshop. So what is your question exactly?
Okay, so now, see, now I can't tell which box, when I look at the thumbnails, I can't really tell which is which. They do say photo 2 and photo 1, and in this case, they are different shapes, so you could.
Yeah, and I could open up a template if you want that is like crazy different shapes, so you can sort of see more.
No, that doesn't really matter, but
okay.
Switch back to the thumbnails to
document bounds.
Yeah, see, that's really kind of cool when I do it that way.
And so I'm not sure, everybody's is a little different in how it opens up the first time. So I truthfully, I've had my settings set for so long that I don't know how Photoshop truly defaults anymore. But
not the way you do it. It's the other way.
So yeah, this way you can easily see, hey, this frame is in the bottom right-hand corner. And there's also another thing that if you see can you see where my mouse is right now? Up in the top left, and I'm circling?
Yes.
Okay, there's something called auto select, and you can click and on-click that. When you have it clicked, whatever layer you click on is where your photo will go when you drag it in. So I'm going to I'm going to drag in a new item and open it up into Photoshop. So give me 1 second. Okay. If you'll see here, it's on auto select. I'm clicking on photo 1. You'll see how it highlighted over here. It did it on its own. And then you drag this in here and you drop it. And it's right above photo 1. When you do your clipping mask, do you know what a clipping mask is?
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. For those of you who don't know, a clipping mask is essentially, there's a shortcut you can hit, Control-Alt-G or Command-Alt-G, or you can go up here. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done it without a shortcut. Give me 1 moment. There is also, hold on.
You can right click on the line between the
two.
there's
it with alter. You can also, like, you'll see where this hovers here. If you're holding Alt, you'll see a little square go down. And that you click that and it'll clip it to what's underneath. So that is a shortcut that makes it super easy. But that auto select is what makes it so you really don't have to know visually what's happening in your layers palette until you get like a lot of crazy layers. But for when you're just easily filling a template, like I'm just clicking, on photo 2 now, and I want to do another pretty something, I can just easily hit another paper, open it up, drag it in onto the template, drop it down, and then do my clicking mask. I'm holding Alt, click, and now it's in photo 2. So that auto select is really the easiest way to identify where you're going to be placing something.
Actually, so when you have auto select on, you click on the template on the layer where you want to put it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly where you do it. The only time that can be frustrating, and I like to warn people about this because it took me a long time to figure out what I was doing wrong, particularly with a template, if you have a text layer up on the top of your template. So like say how they have image 1 and they'll have it typed up there. Text layers kind of trump all. So you can be clicking anywhere, but because the text box is a lot bigger visually than you can automatically see, it can, when you're clicking on it, it's kind of like your computer, your auto select can't look at the layer below because all it feels is this text box. So the easiest way to get around that is to hide like the little eyeball on your layers palette, hide a text layer, and then you can go ahead with your auto select and click and it'll go to photo 2 or the background or wherever. But that text layer can, if you're just having a really hard time with the dragging over and you're like, I know I clicked it, like why isn't it clicking here? That's usually the problem, is that you have a text layer somewhere on your template and it is defaulting because that text layer is so big that even if you can't see it, your computer sees it. So just as a little tip trick, if it's not working, look for the text layer and then hide that. And then you can always turn it right back on when you're done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, hold on. I see that some people we have, okay. Oh, hi, Sonia. How are you doing? Totally fine to be late. We have a long stretch ahead on this anniversary weekend. So there we go. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions at all? I'm free for if we have anything random at all. So
I have a random question.
I love random questions. Bring it.
Okay, so I participate in things like Layout a Day, and I like to give credit to the designers of the kits and the elements and everything else like that. I've heard people talk about scripts or actions or that sort of thing that you can purchase. Some people have already made them, sort of thing, or have you used those? And if so, is that something only specific to Photoshop rather than Photoshop Elements?
I find that most scripts and most actions tend to be only good for Photoshop. Okay. Unless they're specifically labeled PSE. I know that Wendy Zine, I think, might have some. I have found a lot easier way to do that doesn't cost money to purchase something, and also should work no matter what your document or what, and I believe no matter what your software is. And this is how I tend to do it, if you guys don't mind me sharing again real quick. I mean, of course, Natalie, you're right. You can totally purchase something, and if that's easiest for you, if your software is compatible about that, I think Wendy Zine is the only person I have seen that has done that. And I think she is over at, she's over at OScraps now for her actions.
I think so.
Yeah. So if anybody's looking for that, Wendy Zine she's kind of the queen of scripts at this point. So that's the only person I know who does it. And I've only ever seen her do one for Photoshop, but I don't follow her exclusively, or extensively, so I could be wrong. But the easiest way I have found to do that, no matter what software you're using, is to go under File. Is to go under File, and then go under File Info, and then just type in the description. And when you save that, so template XYZ, and then I go Allison Pennington, Fireside Paper. I'm not typing well, but you get the general idea. I hit OK. I'm going to go ahead, save this. It'll come up. Oh, that was dumb. Save as. My bad. Just ignore that part. Save as. I'm going to go to, I have a file on my desktop that I just keep like everything that's in progress. So I'm going to save that as a Photoshop document. All right. And now when I go to my desktop and I go under what I just saved, what did I do with it? That's the big question. God bless you. Okay, give my computer 1 second. It's got a lot running, so I apologize about that. Why are you being sensitive? There we go. We're going to go under Allison Pennington. Yes, there we go, dragging. When I go under Info, you'll see here under the description, template XYZ, Allison Pennington Fireside Paper. And I just copy that and put it in, like whenever I'm posting somewhere, all that information's there. When you share it on Flickr, the description automatically pulls up. You know, and when you're posting to you're posting to like LilyPad or wherever, it's super easy to just copy that, and it's already.
Okay. Wait a second though. That's only per document, not per layer, right? Because remember, I'm the crazy cray that uses more than one kit.
No, yeah, and then that's just saved into the metadata of your page.
Okay.
I just
cool.
put down every kit that I use when I'm doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the super easiest way I've found to just keep notes. And the good thing is well, not everybody does this. I mean, you know that a lot of people in their layers, well, this one didn't work because I have it saved as background, but you know, a lot of people in their layers have like, you know, just Jamie, she has her kit name in there. So everybody, I kind of just do a quick scroll.
Well, that's what I normally do. And then rather than put it into the metadata, what I've been doing is put it right into the Flickr group or into Simple Scrapper or wherever. But hey,
it already gets sucked in.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it gets sucked right into the metadata. It gets posted in more places than not. I'll put it that way. It doesn't always work.
Okay.
But either way, you're still only having to copy that and then just keep pasting it. Like I'll post on like 7 different sites at once.
Yes.
And then just like paste.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
That's very helpful. Thank you. I think that's going to save me a lot of time. I think if I start the practice now, by February load, I'll be good to go, and it will be.
Yeah, because I mean, God, when you're doing load, I can't even imagine trying to do that every time, like, and then retype it out.
It's not really mandated. I mean, because we're not like.
I mean, it's
yeah,
kind of.
I like to do it, but yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
No problem. I feel you're right. I feel it's in the spirit, particularly in digital scrapbooking. We know that you kind of have to sort of do that because it's not like paper where somebody's going to have to go to a store and like hope that it's stocked. Like at a store, everybody can buy it. So you sort of, you know, feel obligated to provide that information to people because they're like, I love that, you know, star. I love that font. I love that, you know, and everybody can get it instead of being like, yeah, sorry guys, I got that 15 years ago at, you know, Simple Square or at, you know, my local scrapbook store. So I like to do it too. And I feel like it's a nice thing to do. So, yeah. Does anybody else have any questions about that? Kind of, there's always good things to learn. Oh, how do I turn on the sound? I don't have a mic, but I do have speakers. You should be able to still hear, but if you can't, Sonia, you can always put in headphones. Like if you have like Apple headphones or any phone headphones that have the speaker in there, you can use that as it has a mic and it also has your, you know, the audio for the speaker. So if you can plug that into your computer or phone, that should work. I don't know if you can hear me at all. Sonia, try headphones. Maybe. Let's see what she says. I can't tell if she can hear me and I'm just talking to nobody. Here we go. Let me go ahead and delete some of this. There we go. Yeah, that would not be the kit that I would be using if I wanted to make something. Oh, you know what? Well, everybody's here. I think that I should do a giveaway. So I know that I had previously spoken about doing about our gift for today, our contest gift for today. Give me 1 second to locate. I'm not sharing anymore. I'm good. Okay. Toggle and everything and let you guys see my whole screen all the time. Terrible. So I'm going to give away a Tracy Reed gift certificate for $10 to one lucky participant. This is going to be through the chat box. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is generate a random number, and the one participant who gets closest to that number without going over is the person who's going to win it. You can only type in your number once, and you'll be able to do it after I paste in this information and hit enter. So once the instructions are in the chat box, you can go ahead and type in your number, and then hopefully we can, there we go, get that great gift certificate. I'm pasting now. And go. Okay. All right, actually, Tara, you got it on the first one. It is 79. So she would be the first one to get it. Tara's the lucky winner here.
Wow. That's
yeah, that was
cool because I actually digitally scrapbook. So like, I really want this prize of all of them.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Tara. That's super great. I'm going to go ahead and copy in the address for you to get that from Jennifer. There we go. Tara. Pardon me. I'm super glad that you got that, Tara, because I know that you're going to use it, and you know, there we go.
That'll be super fun.
Yeah, and she check out that new Thanksgiving kit that she just rolled out with today. It's pretty nice.
Okay.
I'm about it. She even got Traveler's Notebook papers in there and everything. Mama's broke. Anyway, so congrats to you. Okay. Do you guys want to take a little bit to scrap, or do you want more tips, or how are we doing here? Does anybody have any questions about, in general, just basic digital scrapbooking? Because I know we have people who don't do it. Okay, there's Judith. She says, I currently use PSA 2019. Is it worth the cost to change to used PS? So here's the $1 million question. And I know that everybody asks this question, and I will caveat, there is the personal preference thing. My answer may not work for you, but I will give you a little bit of history for me. When I started digital scrapbooking, PSE was quite literally garbage. There was not, it was just completely pointless. It was this was back in 2003. And PSE was essentially the Instagram of its day, meaning, without the social portion, meaning it basically was pulling in really bad digital photos, throwing over, changing your photos to sepia or some other crazy just color palette. And it didn't have it couldn't run any sort of action, even limited ones. It didn't really have any power. And it just was, for me, and the biggest problem with it was the fact that it had no text tools whatsoever. Adobe, when it started, just to give you kind of a little backstory, Adobe was not made to be used with text. When I started digital scrapbooking, there was no, they had 2 different programs for that. So Photoshop was meant to go for images, and they had a program called Adobe InDesign, which is for the publishing world. And each of those licenses at the time were about $1,500 for those softwares. There was no reason for them to throw text tools into Photoshop. And because Photoshop Elements is even more diluted than Photoshop, there was no hope of us having text tools. That really, all you had to do, you could type one line. You couldn't even do text boxes when I got it. So just to give you a little bit of history, Word was a better text program for me and a better scrapbooking program for me than Photoshop Elements. Of course, Photoshop Elements is amazing now. I will caveat that, and I will say that it has come leaps and bounds. The problem for me is that I started in Photoshop, and Photoshop Elements, no matter how much it has increased, my learning curve still has 15 years of Photoshop on it. So for me, it is not worth it to go over to PS it's not worth it to go to Photoshop Elements. I've also already spent all the money on 15 years worth of actions, 15 years worth of plugins, photo editing plugins, things like that are add-ons to Photoshop. As awesome as Photoshop Elements is, there are still some very key things that it cannot do. It can't run a lot of actions unless they're very specific Photoshop Elements actions. And it can't, there's still just a lot of things like when you're recoloring. And yes, Kim, I can, hold on, we can maybe work on that a little bit. Let me see, let me finish with this one. So this is a very long-winded response, but we have time. So basically, Photoshop Elements, I will say that has amazing qualities, and there are actually things that I am jealous of in Photoshop Elements that I do not have in Photoshop. You guys have a very easy, you have very, very many artistic one-button push photo edits. Like you can open up something that has like 25 or 30 edits that do all these really great things. and I have to work for them because I'm in Photoshop. Like, the power of Photoshop is that you can tweak each and every line, but that's kind of a pain in the butt for somebody who doesn't care. You know, if you really just don't want to do that, Photoshop Elements rocks for that. That being said, I think there's also one more thing. Photoshop proper, because it is a subscription-based service, a lot of people push back on that. But when Photoshop first started, as I said, it was like $1,500 for that software. So $20 a month, you would have had to have kept that thing for like 6-7 years to eat without any upgrades in order to pay it off to match that $20. The big thing now is that Photoshop comes with Lightroom. Now, if you are ever, my advice is that if you think that you are going to use Lightroom at some point, if you are looking for a photo editing or for a scrapbooking software and a photo management system, I don't think that you can beat the Photoshop Lightroom combo. It's $20 a month for a terabyte of cloud storage space for your photos, and to me, that is a huge, huge bonus. And I don't think that the time put in to learn Photoshop Elements and then use Photoshop and learn Photoshop and Lightroom, I feel like if you're just going to go for it, like, you really should just use the Photoshop Lightroom bundle and only learn once, because your time is money, so to speak. If you don't think that you're going to be living in Lightroom and you're not going to be using that software bundle, and that does not appeal to you, I don't think that you need to upgrade.
I'm on live, just by the way.
So to me, that is kind of the key difference. If you think that later you're going to go ahead and do Lightroom, I think that you should just kind of go ahead and get the Photoshop Lightroom bundle, embrace it, start learning it, and not have to teach yourself twice. But if you just don't think that Lightroom is ever going to be your thing, my thing would just be to go ahead and get the PSE and go with it. So they each have bonuses. They each have things that are good about them. But for my needs, I know that I would never go backwards to Photoshop Elements just because I'm so entrenched with, monetary add-ons and the Lightroom. I live and die by Lightroom. So I would never switch back. But for somebody who's just starting out and you just don't think you're ever going to care about doing a bunch of photo management and you don't care about that Lightroom bundle, stick with your PSE. That's my personal preference. If anybody else wants to add in and choose your, please add in your preferences on that, but that's just me. Does that make sense to anybody? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. I use Photoshop not because I'm a great digital scrapbooker, but because I'm buying Lightroom anyway. Why should I buy another program? And
that, yeah, exactly my point. And also there is that learning curve. It's kind of like once you embrace the learning curve, like you shouldn't have to do it twice to me. You know what I mean? Like right. You have to relearn everything when you switch from PSE to go to Photoshop. I mean, some of them are things that are the same, but not. And there's one more really big thing that for me is a hang up for Photoshop Elements that I think that I would be remiss if I don't mention. Every single tutorial that you get is going to be Photoshop based. Everyone. If you go to any classes, they're Photoshop based. Yep. If you go to any subscriptions, they're Photoshop based. If you decide that you're going to, if you're somebody who's technique driven like I am, for me, part of my passion is the learning of the thing, not just the making of the thing. And I am obsessed with learning new ways to use Photoshop and hey, how can I paper tear this? How can I ink this? How can I do this? If you're Googling something, you're not finding a Photoshop Elements tutorial without more. I mean, they are there. Of course, they're out there. But your baseline, wherever you go, it's going to be Photoshop first, and then trying to find an alternate sub way to do it in Photoshop Elements. And to me, that is not what I want to do, because I like the techniques. I like learning the things. But I will 100% admit that for most scrapbookers, Photoshop Elements is going to be all that you need. It's going to do everything you need. So, like I said, pros and cons to everything. For me, I will always stick with Photoshop, but I 100% support people who would go and get Elements. Does that wrap it up pretty good?
Go for it. Yes, definitely.
Can I ask a question? Well, or bring something else up, another alternative. So I make my life a little harder. I use GIMP. Does anybody else use GIMP?
I have used it a couple times, but I found they weren't updating it very much, and I was getting I use a Mac.
Oh, see, and I don't.
Yeah, I switched from Windows to a Mac, and it was over. I found that they didn't ever update it, and there were a lot of bugs, and it was just kind of like, because it's a free software, they don't have any reason to update it on a regular basis.
And in truth, I don't even update mine as often as they allow because I have some add-ons and things, and I don't want it to
go
break.
away.
But so GIMP is like a freeware version of Photoshop. If you've never heard of it, my husband's into software, so he told me about it when I first wanted to scrapbook, but I had no money for this hobby and didn't want to spend any. So that's where I started, and so that's what I'm used to using. But when you were talking about the tutorials, everything's written for Photoshop, so then I have to like do the workaround, or I have to like find graphic design tutorials for GIMP and then figure out how to work from there to get the scrapbooking effect I want. So it's like, it's free, which is really nice, but it's more self-taught than you can be with Photoshop.
And it's not bad. It's not bad. I just, because of that tutorial issue, for somebody who isn't tech savvy at all, I can't recommend GIMP because you're never figuring that stuff out.
No, I wouldn't recommend it if you're not tech savvy. I agree.
Yeah. But
just installing it and figuring out updates and things takes some of that.
But like, if you have your husband there, if you have somebody who is super tech savvy, rock on, like go free. I mean, go free or go home. But I just find for most people, I mean, I can't imagine trying to explain to somebody who's never done anything. I'd be like, oh, I hope you can find something in Google. Like, so, okay. That is a very valid point. And there's also other softwares. There are things like, I know that, well, at one point Creative Memories had one, and I know that Carol Ann actually uses something completely different. So she's not on right now. I'm sorry. I really am so hardwired into Macs and Photoshop. I do try to answer whatever questions I have, but you know, there's a limit to my knowledge. Kathy did ask a question, and Judith, you're very welcome. Please ask anything else that you need. Kathy did ask, what does Lightroom do? Lightroom is a very long story as well, but Lightroom essentially is bulk photo management and editing, where what you kind of do with Lightroom, and it is not necessary, but I take on average 1,000 photos a week. That's my thing. I take a lot and I love it, but managing that and editing that is very difficult on a one-by-one basis. So Photoshop, you can edit one photo at a time, and you can edit it really well. And sometimes you can do some, I will say that there are scripts and some things where you can do certain things to a bunch of photos, but to keep things simple, Photoshop is editing one photo at a time. You can change your levels. You can do some cloning. You can edit, you know, a person's face. You can remove a face, put a new face on. That's what Photoshop is for that detailed, in-depth photo editing of one photo. Lightroom is more for batch editing, organization, and I can actually show you, like, just real quick. I'm going to share my screen so she can see. So Lightroom is a good place to, here we go, desktop, share. So I do Lightroom in the cloud. I know not everybody does that, so I'm not even going to get into that unless anybody wants to talk about the cloud versus not cloud argument. But here we go. It's hard because you guys I got the screen on the bottom, so please bear with me while I figure this part out. So this is my daughter. This is me trying to get pictures of my daughter in one fell swoop because she moves very fast and she's a toddler. All of these clearly are not everything I'm going to use, but if I want to do editing to these, my thing keeps going. Where's my, okay. I have a preference. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. This is very hard to do when I'm used to full screening it and I can't because of Zoom. I'm going to shrink. I'm going to raise up. There we go. Okay. You'll see that I have a thing called presets. Presets are essentially kind of like a fancy Instagram filter, but way more technical and adjustable. I'm actually not sure if my computer is going to like me editing photos while I Zoom, so I feel like I had a problem with that. But you'll see there's things for exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites. You can do blur, you can do depth of field, you can do all of that. And then when you edit the one photo, you can copy paste and paste it on 1,000 of them. So, and you also have pre-done, like I can save it like this, Cool Light, Control C, hit these guys here, Control V, and I just edited all of those photos. and it'll take a second to sync up, but that is what Lightroom does that Photoshop cannot do. That is what most professional photographers use. They do, they go ahead and do a wedding or whatever. I don't do a wedding. I just do my child's 1,000 photos per day. And here we go. Where's the Zoom screen? I'm sorry. Stop sharing. There we go. That is what Lightroom is for. And what Adobe does is they bundle, normally each app that they have like 15 apps or something in what they call the Creative Cloud or the Creative Suite. They know that people like us, like the more the hobbyists, are not going to pay $50 or $60 a month, which is what they charge for professionals. So what they have is this thing called the Photography Bundle, which has Lightroom and Photoshop, and it's $20 a month for both of them, which is why most of us will use it, where we wouldn't pay for two of them normally. So that's when I was saying, if you're going to be paying for Lightroom anyway, like the Photoshop thing works then, but otherwise PSE works very nicely for a lot of people. Kathy, does that explain to you what Lightroom does? In a very long-winded sort of way. There we go. Okay. What am I hearing? Okay, great, Kathy. I'm glad that works for you. Ooh, we got a puppy happening. Somebody's got a puppy. There we go. Does anybody else have any questions that you want answered before I kind of go to another tip? It really just goes to mentality, the way you practice, the way you prepare. Okay. What am I hearing? I'm hearing some sort of news. Here we go. Okay, Judith, what is happening here? Is anybody else hearing a noise? I'm sorry, I'm trying to identify it and I can't seem to locate it.
I hear it.
I hear it. Can you mute everybody and see what happens?
Yeah, I'm going to. Normally I can see it and I could not see it. There we go. You're all muted now. There you go. Okay. Anybody wants to add back in, you're more than welcome. All right, the next thing I was going to do, I was actually going to show you for the artsy types, I was going to show you how to do a little bit of digital painting. If that's something that interests people, let me know. I can do a little of that if anybody's interested in that.
Sure, I'd love to see it.
Okay, so this is, let me get a bit of just a kind of a clear paper first, and we'll get that started. Clearish paper anyway. Let's get a white paper. We'll open that up in Photoshop, and then I will share screen again. Okay, share. Okay, so something that I did that took a long time for me to embrace doing was, and I do this with my styles as well, I save my Photoshop add-ons based on how I use them. So say when you go to a store and you buy a bunch of stitching brushes. So like my favorite are Anna Aspinus stitching brushes. I literally use them on every layout that I use, like because they're so realistic and they're just cool looking. So there we go. You know, I got a little stitch. I'm going to add a new layer so I don't mess up my paper. But you know, that can get a little overwhelming when you have, 10 years of Photoshop supply, or 10 years of digital supplies, or 15 years or 20 years at this point. And you have a lot of stuff that you like. So what I did with my styles, and I did just finish doing with my brushes, is I saved the ones that I really like by theme. And so like when you look here and I have new, I can load new, there's a section down here of these groupings that I made. So as they get bigger, like Photoshop can only save a style document so large. So I'm up to color 7, but glitters 1, 2, and 3, drop shadows. I have a whole one for just mommy-ish enamel styles because they're kind of their own tool. Then I have tools 1 and tools 2. So like those are things like frayed edge brushes, folded, folded paper brushes, burlap texture brushes. So those are all things that make something look like something else. What I did once I did all that with all my styles, I kind of thought about it and I was like, why have I never done this with my brushes? Because I don't use my brushes because I have quite literally thousands and thousands of them. I can show you here what I'm talking about. Under brushes and tools, this is just some of the brushes that I use on the fairly regular basis. And I'm never going to load all of those into Photoshop at one time. It's just not possible. It won't even hold that many at once. So what I started to do is I opened them all up and I saved them in these groups. There's at the lily pad now, NBK, she tends to be, her and Anna Aspinus are the ones I tend to prefer for paint brushes. I just like their style, but there are so many other people who do this sort of thing. But I have found that for me, NBK and Anna Aspinus, depending on what kind of look I'm going for, tends to be something I really enjoy. So, but for the longest time, I was quite literally just using paints like, well, how was I using? I was doing this. I was taking a paintbrush and I was just painting. Sorry, give my computer just a second. It's having a little hard time with the feed and the painting and the thinking about things. So yeah, I was just painting and that was great. It was fun, but it wasn't really doing anything and I couldn't quite capture the reason why it didn't look like real to me. You know what I mean? It was just great. That's a paint spot. And of course I would do it in a different color than black, but I'm just doing this for visibility purposes. I was like, but that doesn't really look like the textured kind of paint I'm going for. That's kind of the point. I want it to look like I actually took a paintbrush and made something. And that to me is sort of the biggest benefit of doing digital. Well, most of my pages tend to look very paper and I'm fine with that. I fell in love with the paper and hybrid style. And that is kind of what I tend to go for, but every once in a while I want to do a little bit of messy things. And the cool thing about digital is, you don't have to break out all that stuff and you don't have to wait for it to dry. And if you mess up, you can just delete it and it doesn't matter and you can start over. So I was determined to figure out what I was doing wrong. And it turns out it really wasn't much. There's a very, very simple thing that I just never bothered to do. And it was go into my brush settings palette. You'll see here, there's brushes, and that's what it defaults to when you have your brushes there. I don't know what this pink line is going on my computer. It's doing something or another. I don't know. Ignore that pink line. I don't know what that's all about. That's just something weird my computer's doing. So what I noticed that, one second, gonna get something here. Trying to find. Why is my computer being weird? Okay. So you'll notice I just clicked on a paintbrush and it put two different colors, one in the foreground and one in the background. And for those of you that don't do a lot of digital scrapping or are just thinking about that, those are basically just two paint pots. Those are just two colors you can kind of select at the same time. And depending on how you choose to use your shortcuts, you basically can just toggle back and forth between them using the letter X. You'll see the blue one just came up to the top. Now the green one's up to the top. And that's what they're called, foreground and background colors. But essentially it's just like having two paint pots out digitally. You can always change those colors, to something else, but that's for all demonstration purposes. These are the two that we're going with right here. Now, when you go to brush settings, there's this whole other thing that tells you how to use your brushes that I never knew existed. And I had been doing this for a long time. So in the interest of, you guys all might know this or you might not, but there's something called color dynamics. And you'll see this here, and it happens to be checked right now, but a lot of times on brushes, it's not checked. There's going to be something called foreground background jitter for the color. And what that means is that depending on how you move this dial is how quickly with this brush it's going to jump from this color to this color, which means when you drag it, it's going to turn, and you'll see here, I'm going to make it bigger and I'm gonna make it, there we go. Hopefully you guys can see here. You see how it's changing colors a little bit now? It's a little bit more realistic, how it goes from blue to green and back again. And I can make that a little bit more distinct if I want to do, I'm going to do red here just to make it bright for you guys. But hold on. See how it goes now from blue to pink? And these are things that's jumping back and forth on its own depending on how I click on it. And I am not changing any colors. It's just doing it on its own because I have this foreground background jitter button selected. So for me, that was like a really cool way to go ahead and learn how to paint something. And you can do that with any brush. Anything that looks painty, I'm gonna go ahead and select it. I just happen to have two different colors. I'm gonna go to brush settings and I'm gonna see this one doesn't have color dynamics turned on. I'm gonna turn it on and play with it because I wanna see how much I can do here. And I'm gonna make that smaller because that's a huge brush. So let's just, but it's gonna see how it has different layers of colors in here. And now you have a bunch of colors. And you can use that with any paintbrush to make it more realistic. And the cool part is you can take a photo. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna duplicate this guy onto that page just for, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Oops, sorry. Control delete. We're gonna duplicate that and we're gonna put it on my painty layer just to see something. All right, now that's on there. I'm going to use how we used our clipping mask with the Alt-G, and you see how that's clipped right into there? You could do that in a big way. It's not, I normally wouldn't resize big like this, just, you know, but you see how now you have a painted mask? I could make that prettier, but I'm not right now, but, or you can change the blending mode in your photo. And it takes a little bit of work, but you see how now I changed it to lighten? I could make this a pink photo of my child with all these colors coming through. And then you have something a little bit more artsy to play with than you started with. And it's not black, so it doesn't come through in that burny color. Like, you know how a lot of times when you try to blend something, it's a little bit darker than you think it is. It depends on the color that you start with too. And so this is a way to add a little bit more texture to your attempts at art and blending without much effort. So does anybody have any questions about that? There we go. Seeing a chat thing.
Are you going to help me when I try this?
I'm around all the time. So, all right, who's talking up? Sorry, I can't see with, hold on.
Yeah,
where?
Betty Lou.
Oh, Betty, oh yeah, I totally can help you. It really is, that's the thing is it's super simple once you realize you're literally just hitting one button. You're just hitting.
I have that written down, but I'm not.
Yeah, oh, and I'm totally available. And this goes for everybody. The good thing about Simple Scrapper is literally just hit me up on the chat in Simple Scrapbooker and just type at Breon, and I'll pop up. I don't ever sleep, like ever. So if you're scrapbooking at 4 a.m., I'm probably around, depending on your time zone, of course. I'm Eastern, but yeah, please ask me for help. It's a super easy way to add just a little bit of oomph, right? I mean, it took like 2 seconds to do. And once I learned that I'm just hitting that one color dynamics button, it's really not hard, but it gives you something that looked like you worked really hard. And that's kind of the cool thing about digital is that you can have that happen and everybody goes, oh, what did you do? And it's like, I hit a button, just one, like, and you can do this with, here we go. I'm going to put my brush back on there. There's other settings I don't want to get too deep and confuse people and stuff. So please let me know if I'm just making things a mess, but there's other things even in this brush settings palette that you can change. You can change shape dynamics. You can change how it scatters, which basically means how much space is between when you paint, how much space is left in between your whatchamacallit, in between, I'm still on color, sorry, under scattering, you can see how far apart your brush gets. Like now it's different when I do it. See how it's painting all over? Instead of just in that circle I was in before, it's going everywhere. All I did was change the space between my brush strokes. But that palette is really a great place to play with no threat. Like there's no consequence if you do this, right? Because it's digital. And you can try something new without any problem. Like if you tried to do this with, you tried a whole bunch of different paint strokes on paper that you spent all that money on, there's a lot less willingness to play like that. So this is just something I kind of found that it gives you a lot of visual bang for your buck. It's just something new to try and play with. So please feel free to ask me any questions you want. We can do dodge, we can do hard light, difference, and these are just playing with blending modes with this. And it's kind of fun. So anybody else have any questions on this? Did I miss anything?
I just like that you talked about it because I've never played with my brush settings very much. And like I said, I'm using GIMP, which is different, but there are settings there and I just never played with it. So I've been pulling them out and playing with them while you talked. And that was a great idea.
Well, and that's the cool part is like, I've been doing this for ages and ages and ages. Like, literally most of my life at this point, I've been in Photoshop. But there's still things I learn like every week. I'm like, oh, and the cool thing about the program is that there's like 15 different ways to do the same thing. There's always a new way there's always a new way to ink something. There's always a new way to do all this stuff. So, play with it and there's no risk. It's just fun. It's just a new technique to learn. Goonies never say die, man. Let's just paint. Like, let's just play. And I think it just makes people happy once they I feel like the first instinct to be is like, I can't do that. I'm not techie. I can't do this. This is too hard. We all do it. It's scary to do things that are new, but there's no risk in digital. Just ride the roller coaster.
I think the lack of risk is actually why I started digital scrapbooking, because I had bought a few paper scrapbooking supplies, but there was the mess issue because I had little kids when I started wanting to do it. And also I was afraid to cut any of those pretty things or use them and then not like it and then they were gone. Mm-hmm. And so with digital, it was that freedom of like, I can use it, but it's still there and I can use it again. So it's no risk.
Exactly. Yeah. I came around things a very roundabout way to digital. I started with hybrid back when I literally was just using Word. I got my first Packard Bell computer, like giant sized in like 95. And, they bundled it up with an Olympus digital camera that was like 1.2 megapixels. It was awesome. And clip art, you could get 1,000 smiley faces for like $5 on a CD. And that's how I started scrapbooking. And I didn't even know that it was hybrid. I just knew that like it was a couple bucks and I wanted to make something cute and I was a teenager. So what did I care? You know what I mean? Like, so, and then I became, as some of you know, I became a sales rep actually during the big scrapbooking push. And I loved all the paper and I became obsessed, but I represented a lot of really big lines. And every time CHA came around and every time the summer one came around, I would get every single pattern paper they made and every single punch and every single art marker. And this all sounds delightful for a while until you realize I lived in a 300 square foot studio apartment in New Jersey. And I began to get to the point where I would have to, just to get dressed in the morning, lift 8 or 9 feet of paper. And it was so, and I couldn't scrapbook anymore. I got paralyzed and the panic was like, it actually affected my mental health. It was so much like hoarding, but I couldn't get rid of it because it was my job. And I just stopped doing everything for several years. And then I rediscovered it actually through my boyfriend. When I met him, his twin is a graphic designer and he's a little crazy. And I knew that I needed the twin to like me. And so I spent a lot of time with him and he, I was like, how'd you learn all this stuff? And he's like, girl, I went to school and I just took all of his textbooks and I started playing in Photoshop. And I was like, my first thing, and I actually brought this up, I bring this up because I wanted to show you guys my first digital layout. The first thing that I was super stoked to make was I read in a textbook about the Oreo campaign and about how they like actually graphically started making the Oreo logos and using these. And I was like, I like cookies. I will make an Oreo logo. And that Oreo logo took me like 2 weeks to make. I'm not even joking, because I didn't just decide to make a scrapbook page. I decided to learn blending modes and bevel and emboss and all these tools. And I had, because I'm a nerd and I learned things without talking to anybody. And without a community, I just went for it. And I clearly went in over my head. But the thing that was kind of cool is that I saved that Oreo title forever. And let me show you what I ended up making with it. There we go. This was my page. And I saved that stupid Oreo sign for like 2 years. And I saved it. And it was like, this is my first like digital page. And I look back on this and it's like, you know what? Yeah, it's not everything I would do now. Like clearly for me, I would probably put more drop shadows on the flowers. I definitely wouldn't use sepia. I tend to be more of a conservative photo editor at this point in my digital life. But I just remember how happy I was. And I had learned to do something that was completely out of my wheelhouse. And I was brave. It's hard to do something and to be brave sometimes that we get in this mindset of like, but I like my paper. And these are all valid things to think. So I 100% am all about hybrid and I'm all about paper, like rock it out. I still make Christmas cards, I love the texture of it too, but I learned something new and like I felt parts of my brain fire differently than they did when I was using paper, because it's just learning new skills all the time. And I have to say that for my creative process, that high that I get when I learn something new is what has kept me coming back for the last 2 decades and the last 15 years of digital almost, and figuring out how to do things a different way and knowing that I have the creative muscle and I have the creative willpower and strength to learn a new tool is something that I just suggest, even if you're afraid of digital or even if you just think, oh, this can't be for me, it's good to learn. It's good for our brains and it's good for our creative muscles to try something like that. Even if and the thing is it's not all or nothing. Like I preach the digital gospel forever and ever, amen. But not every story needs to be told digitally, and not every story needs to be told in 12 by 12, and not every story needs to be paper or or pocket scrapbooking or a 6x8. I would just say that try GIMP if it's free, or get a digital download of PSE, or try a free trial of Photoshop, and add that tool to your wheelhouse. These storytelling tools are all something that you can reach into your bag and just you have it forever. It doesn't go away. So. And the good part about Simple Scrapbooker or Simple Scrapper is that you have, I think like something like 20% of our members or something at this point are identify as digital scrapbookers, because you can only pick one. And we're all there for you. And this community is fantastic. Jennifer's fantastic. And if she doesn't know the answer, she'll find one of us to find the answer for you, or with you, not for you, but, I just feel like this is something that everybody can kind of benefit from, and I'm super passionate about it. So, please, like my pages are not always crazy great all the time either. And you pick yourself up and you do something new again. And okay, Kim, I know I totally ditched you on your hybrid questions, so I apologize. I was kind of in the middle of something else. So you said, can you show how you print a hybrid album such as a floral piece to add to a physical layout? Now, I will admit I don't do a ton of hybrid anymore. That's not something I tend to just print 12 by 12 layouts or 12 by 24 and I put them in a book. But I know that there's super easy ways in which to do that. And generally speaking, I have found the easiest way is just to, like, I know there's like a million ways to do it. You can just create a new document, depending on how, like, so say you want a 3x4 card. I'm just going to do something in an odd shape just because why not? Like, whatever. I got nothing else about going on. There you go. Create. I made sure that it was at 300 DPI. Or actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to skip that. Back it on up. Hold on. New. There we go. I'm going to create 8.5 times 11. So this is an 8.5 by 11 white background. I have mine set to 16-bit because this is a technical thing. Ignore this if you don't need it. When you pull photos in from Lightroom that have been edited with presets, they pull in as 16-bit. And you do want your quote-unquote bits to match, which sounds way more fun than it should be for digital scrapbooking. Your bits must match. But generally speaking, 8-bit is what, and 300 pixels per inch. These are your printing settings. And you're going to put a white background most of the time, I would imagine, unless maybe you're doing Christmas and you want like a red background or something to like make it easy for trim for your papers. But it's going to print white even if you have it clicked under clear or transparent or whatever. Anyway, so I'm creating a 8.5 by 11 for printing. I'm going to pull in some, let's go to my downloads. What did I buy today? Oh, God. This is from my lovely lady, Susan of Raspberry Road Designs. I'm going to pull in an autumn piece, and I'm going to pull in, I will pull in a flower, and I will resize it. And I will pull in fall blessings, etc., etc. Now, I think the key here is you don't want to put things too close to your edge, right? Because there is the chance, we do have to deal with something when you're printing called bleed. And that is the little bit of paper that gets grabbed on the edge by your printer.
Do you want to share your screen again?
Oh my God, I'm not. Oh my, I feel like a jerk. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm back. I did want to share my screen. Very, very much so. Thank you. My bad. Okay. But either way, I now have, I can start that all over if you want. I probably should.
No, I was following it. And then finally.
Okay. No, I'm sorry.
Look at it.
I'm sorry.
Like, there.
So I have an 8.5 by 11. Let's start again. 8.5 by 11 white sheet of paper. I did this by going to New Document, and I created, when you're in Photoshop, it'll bring up your last thing that you made as your document type. So you'll see here I have a 12 by 12 custom that I keep, and I can just click that if I want a 12 by 12 paper document, or there you go. Or you can make a 8.5 by 11. I made it 300 DPI because that is the standard print resolution. Anything lower than that is questionable. Well, 200, you can get by with 200 DPI. That is, you know, what Project Life app does is 200 DPI for those of you who use those, use that app. But really any lower is questionable. 72 DPI, if you ever see that as a setting, is made for the web. That will not be print worthy. It will look fine on your screen and it'll look great on the web, but it will not look good when you print it. So don't do that. 300 DPI is the standard. So then you just pull in some elements and place them on your page here. And it's all gonna, it doesn't really matter what your background color is because it's just gonna print with whatever your, whatever color paper you use. So, you know, I could at this point, if I wanted to do clear, if I knew I was gonna print on something, say like red paper, I could delete my background and just have it clear. You'll see all these little checkered lines. That just means it's a transparent background. So whatever you print at that point is going to take on the color of your paper. But for most of us, it's going to be white. And you just fill up your document however you want to do that. Making sure that on the edge, as I was saying before, I was notified I was not doing this correctly. Thank you, Betty Lou. Is that you need to make sure there is some semblance of a border when you print, because what your printer needs to do is grab these edges with its little, you know, feely feed rollers, for technical terms there. And if you put something too close to the edge, or if you put it right up against the edge, this is not going to print. It's going to print like here, like where, if you can see, like, you know, it'll print like maybe where the autumn white edge comes in here. It's not going to get that edge. So try to keep a little bit of space. I usually try to do a good 1/4 of an inch when I'm printing. Same thing when I'm making digital scrapbooking pages. I tend to not put anything super important really close to the edge here, because there is always the risk that when the photo book gets printed, or when the whatchamacallit, I'm having a, oh my God, I'm tired. When the photo book is printed, or when you get a page printed at, say, Persnickety Prints or somewhere, you're going to end up having some sort of cutoff. So I just try to make sure that there's no like script writing right up at the very edge, because it's not going to be there when you get your page back. At this point, yeah, you can either straight up just print from here in Photoshop. It should just let you basically, you save it, you can export here. Yeah, you save it as a JPEG, but most of the time, if you're going to be printing something like over and over, I would save as a PDF, because PDFs are the standard when it comes to printing. You can upload that, you can print, here's Photoshop PDF, and it is the standard when it comes to being a print document. That means it can't be edited anymore, though. It's not something that, if you save it this way, this is the way it's going to be. You're not going to open it right back up again and start pulling your autumn stuff around or whatever. So if you're printing, you can just go ahead and save this as a PDF, and then hold on here. We're going to save. Okay, fine. Just save PDF. Stop yelling at me. I don't do a lot of PDFs in my computer. It's not set for that. And then it should come up here. It is saving now. So if we give it a second, it'll show up with the images somewhere in here. Nope, that's not it. I apologize. There it is. Okay, sorry. And if you look here, when I preview it, that's what it looks like. It's very easy to print at that point, and should be easy for any printer to just go ahead and suck out and just go to town. If you're thinking of crop, sometimes people like Kathy Zielski, they will use things called crop marks, which are little X's at the corners of square items like journal cards and things. That cannot really be done in Photoshop unless you manually just do a guidepost line. And I'm going to be honest, that's not something that we really want to get into too much here. It's very, very tedious. And if you ever want to hit me up on the side, that's fine. But it's very tedious. You're doing a lot of strokes and things like that. And actually, Kathy Zielski does have a, I believe she has a tutorial on her site, and I can always link up to that at some point for anybody who needs it. What kind of printer do I use for these pages? Just a photo printer, or you can use an inkjet printer. You can use a laser printer depending on if you want to do things like Mink. Like I know, like Heidi Swap for you paper ladies. I don't do Heidi Swap stuff, but I know she does a lot of foil, and her Mink machine needs a laser printer. Each printer has different kinds of uses, but most of the time, if you're doing hybrid pages, you can very easily get away with like any of your standard Epson, Canon types of things. I personally do not do hybrid anymore. So if I was going to print something, I used to have a giant 13x19 printer, and that thing was amazing. It was also a beast that took up my entire scrapbook desk. So and also the price of printing has gone down so significantly. It used to be cheap for me to have the 13x19 printer, and print at home was much more cost effective. Now, you know, $2 a page at Persnickety Prints to print something and have it be water safe. And I know it's not that instant gratification, but for me, it was more cost savings to just send it out to Persnickety Prints than to print 12x12 pages at home. It's one thing to print, your 8.5x11 hybrid items. That's not a big deal. But when you start getting into the full 12x12 pages, the cost effectiveness was not really there once Persnickety and all these other guys kind of came into town and started printing for much cheaper prices. It just didn't make sense for me to buy all that ink and paper. And but yeah, for just printing at home, doing an 8.5x11, there you go. Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, Kim is going to do a full hybrid, but yeah, that's just a quick and easy way. It's just making, putting all your items on a PDF, and you can print the PDF really easily. and you can do, you know, print things. That's why when you get like digital kits that are journaling cards, a lot of times they include a PDF already made of the journal cards, because then you don't even have to bother with all this lining up and throwing things on a new document. You just print the PDF straight out. So, all right, I hope that helps, Kim. I know that was kind of a lot of rambling, but then I have one last tip. We're kind of rounding the corner here on the edge of our crop time. We're at 20, we have about 20 minutes left. Did anybody else have any questions about printing? Okay, I do have one one thing that I feel like would be kind of great to show off that Photoshop does, and this is one of the reasons I really like Photoshop. Here we go, let me get rid of here. I'm actually gonna keep this. I think I'm gonna do something with that later. Get rid of that document, don't save. I am going to show you what it looks like to do a little bit of photo editing and do it, do something that you can't really do anyplace else. Let's get, I'm scrolling here, don't mind me. I took a lot of photographs when we went to the pumpkin patch. I'm trying to find one of me and, oh no, this is all photos. We don't want to do that. No wonder it was taking forever for my thing to load. Lightroom lets you do all photos, and it just gets a little crazy. I think week 42. When I'm doing my photos, I sort them by week because of project life. There we go. I'm going to find a picture of us. This is for faces. Please bear with me. It takes just a second for me to, I know I'm in here somewhere. Where are we? There was all three of us somewhere in here. I knew it was near the chickens. Where's the chickens? You know, I can do this one. It's just Jay and Abby. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I hit Control E, and it just opens, because I'm in Lightroom Mobile, it will open right into Photoshop for me. And I have this photo here, so yay. Now, you know how I'm a big firm believer in not editing to make yourself look like not yourself. And that's just a personal preference. Rock on to everybody who wants to, you know, look 45 pounds lighter and, you know, look great and want to pretend you're Tyra Banks. I have no hate for it, but it's not how I like my photos to generally look. That said, we all have those times where we take a selfie and we're like, God, my chin looks weird, and that's just not how I look. Like, and I don't want that saved, and I don't want to, you know, have that in my scrapbook for posterity because I was squinting and I look funny and it just didn't do any good. So, oh, hold on, I got a chat. Oh, bye, Jackie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So an easy way to do this is you go up to Filter and you use Liquify. Now, Liquify sounds kind of terrifying, and for the longest time I didn't do anything with it because Liquify was like, it made me think of, hold on, why is this? No, oh, never mind, hold on. I actually just applied the filter. Hold on, you scroll down and you go to Liquify. I was just applying the old filters that I did. So now see how this pulls up? There's a whole bunch of information in here. But the cool part is that the Liquify filter, far from actually making things soggy or, you know, swirly looking, it actually changes parts of your face or body. And you'll see here under face, I am going under Face Aware Liquify. It's going to have Face 1 and Face 2 because it's smart enough to know that Abby is here and Jay is here. And those are two different faces. Now, sometimes when you're looking at something, it distorts, you know, when you're in a camera, it distorts your face a little bit. And you may be like, okay, my nose doesn't look like that. Now let's see who is Face 1 and Face 2, an easy way to check that. Okay, so Jay's nose, Jay is Face 2. He is here. Now his nose in that direction looks a little bit like it got turned, and it's kind of the way I'm holding the angle of the thing here, or holding the angle of my camera, and we were just on a hayride and we were bouncing everything. Now I'm gonna make his nose skinnier. And the way to do that is I pull it, and you can see here, that is what his nose really looks like. That is fairly close to what his nose looks like. versus the angle of my camera and the distortion of my iPhone lens had him over here. That's a big difference in how he looks. You see that? That is kind of cool, especially when you start getting into the time where you're like, you know, that just gave me a huge double chin and that's not the way I look. You can do things like pick each eye. So Jay also, it made his nose wider. It also made his one eye, this eye, look a lot wider than this eye. Well, maybe I want to balance out his left eye to make that look, there we go. And he's balanced back out a little bit because he was squinting in the sun on his, what would have been his right eye, and it looks on my left here. Now, Abby, same thing. Her left eye looks a little bit different too. So I'm going to go to face 1 because that's Abigail, according to them. And I'm going to make her cheeks. I'm going to go down to face width. And I'm going to, I stretched her. I gave her back her baby cheeks. And here I made her a thinner one. Now that's a little too thin. You can see I kind of went overboard there. But these are small little tweaks you can do when people just look a little off and it doesn't look like the way your friends or mom or anybody looks. And you know that, especially when you know you're making a scrapbook page and your mom's going to be like, I don't look like that. Why did you make me look like that? This is an easy way to do some very quick touch-up photo editing that you can really only do in Photoshop. And, you know, kind of, especially when you get things like formal portraits, you know, a hayride is not really the sword you need to die on as far as each photo looking great. But if you took some photos out by the lake and you really want things to look great, these little tiny tweaks can make a difference. Now, this is the face-aware liquify. There is also the brush tool options. I'm going to show you this because I want to show you what can happen if you go overboard and what the liquify tool actually does. So I'm exaggerating this a lot. Liquify is basically moving a bunch of pixels, but it has to take them from somewhere else. It basically shoves them from one side to the other, which is why you can squish the face a little bit and you can squish the nose over a little bit and the eyes up a little bit. It's taking those things and moving them around. If you use it too much though, this is where you get things like Photoshop fails on the cover of a magazine and somebody all of a sudden looks really, really skinny. You can tell where that happens because of the things that are surrounding them. So like if I made Jay's arms really skinny, look at that. This is obviously not realistic, but you can see the green part of that hayride got pulled in with it. So you have to be careful when you are using liquify that you don't go a little too crazy because people will be able to see on the side like, hey, that tree moved. Like, you know, when you get Oprah, who all of a sudden looks like she lost 45 pounds, but the cabinet next to her doesn't have a straight line, that's why. So just be cautious with how you use liquify. It can be a great tool, but you do not want to go too crazy because then you have some very obvious tells and that kind of defeats the purpose. So I hope that helps. I hope that was interesting and something that you guys might be interested in knowing for the future.
That was really helpful.
Awesome. I'm glad.
But in scrapbooking, I could just put a flower over that distorted post and no one will ever know.
Well, see, and you can lose that 45 pounds like that. Cosmo doesn't have digital scrapbooking flowers, but that's when you start knowing those things, you start looking at these cover things and you're like, oh girl, your arm's all messed up. You know what I mean?
I've seen the photo edit ones, but I didn't know that was the tool that did them. Like I recognize it now.
So now you all can give yourself facelifts if you feel like. So that was kind of the last thing I sort of wanted to touch upon. The last 15 minutes, if you guys want to, if there's any other questions or anything like that, let me know. But I didn't want to give you too awful much to go. You probably didn't get to scrap at all. Did anybody get to scrap at all? I'm sorry. I probably talked through the whole thing. There we go.
I didn't really scrap, but I did have my my Lightroom working away.
Mm-hmm.
So I made progress.
Yeah, no, that's something.
I finished a page and posted it up on Simple Scrapper already.
Woo, woo, woo.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Good for you. Yeah, Wendy, yeah, PSC is definitely not a subscription. It's an outright purchase, and Photoshop can also just be called Photoshop. I mean, Creative Cloud is Creative Cloud is more than just Photoshop. Creative Cloud is like 15 other programs as well. It's a creative suite. So yeah, it's that's why I just say Photoshop and not Creative Cloud, because it gets very confusing to people when they're like, well, Lightroom is also Creative Cloud, and InDesign is also Creative Cloud, and After Effects is also Creative Cloud. So I try to keep it to a dull roar, I guess. So there we go. Okay. Yeah, I know I didn't scrapbook anything. I was all like into it. So now I'm like, hey, let's make things. Like, let's go paint. Yeah. Anything else, anybody? Do I use Bridge? Yes, I do. Bridge, I will, once again, hold on, sharing screen before I forget. Share screen. I have to pull up Bridge. Where is Bridge here? I just updated my computer, so I'm trying to locate some of my stuff. There's Bridge. Okay. Bridge for me it's in some ways it feels kind of redundant. No, I don't want to import preferences. Sorry, it's the first time I've used it since I updated my computer and my Photoshop, so it's going to be a little stubborn. But Bridge in some ways is a little redundant because it's basically, hold on, Creative Cloud libraries are now in Bridge. Okay, yes, fine, sure. No, I don't, just dismiss, go away. Sorry guys, it gets a little mad when you open it for the first time after an update. But basically it's another file system, like, so I'm on a Mac, so it's kind of like Finder, except Finder pumped up, The good thing is that you can change how your previews work. I'm gonna go to my, it didn't save some of my, it did not save some of my preferences, so I'm sorry, I actually don't have, I'm sorry, I'm not actually gonna be able to super show you everything here, but I'll go to pictures and go to some of the quick pages I made. So the good thing about Bridge is that everything that you click on, it opens right up into Photoshop. So there's no second, there's no like pull down, open in, all that other stuff. It just assumes that everything you want to click on goes right to Photoshop. So for me, that's a pretty cool, just easy peasy feature. It also tends to load a lot quicker than Finder, and it holds more types of Photoshop documents that you can see than your Windows Explorer or Finder, because it's tailored to Adobe products. And it's made for that kind of, graphics-based file sorting. It also, because I use Lightroom and I use Lightroom in the cloud, I do not use Lightroom desktop. If you're using Lightroom desktop, it's kind of cool because you can like have all your photos in here and you have all your tags and ratings and all this other stuff. I think that tagging eventually is going to go by the wayside as artificial intelligence takes it over, to be completely honest. I don't think that tagging is something we're going to need to do. So I'm not doing it anymore. Ooh, that's corrupted. That's not good. Ooh. No good, something broke. What's happening here? But if you want to tag, this is a good place to do it, and it basically carries out tagging throughout your entire Adobe system. So this is kind of a file, like just a viewfinder that is more tailored to Photoshop or tailored to Adobe products. You'll see it scrolls really quickly. That actually is sort of a hindrance on Mac. They've found that there's a little bit of a glitch with the special mouse that Macs have, that it scrolls sometimes too quickly. But overall, I like being able to, you can tag things with keywords on the left. You can, sort very easily by date created. You can look at your collections that you make. When you're doing photos, you can search by things like ISO, speed, and lens type, and serial numbers of your cameras. It's really made more for, I feel like more professionals use Bridge. I do it with, it's not in here right now, but I do have my digital supplies in here, and it is very easy to see full collections and compare and contrast them in Bridge than it is in Explorer. So also, it's very easy to publish things if you are a person who does other Adobe products. So Adobe Portfolio is a little thing here. And that's essentially an online, you can make an online scrapbook / website there, but that's a whole nother thing to discuss. That's not for a crop. That's that's a huge tutorial kind of section. So, but it's easy to publish. You can publish, I believe, to like Facebook and some other things too. I'm not on Facebook anymore, so I'm not going to see that up here. And you can see like previews of your items in the preview tab and all the metadata that goes with that. And yeah, that's it. I find you can also do like, I believe there's, your keywords, your metadata, output, film strip. There's a lot of different libraries you can build. Bridge is kind of like, I don't feel that it's necessary, but it is handy if you know that you're going to strictly be working within the Adobe Cloud suite. You can just easily move files from one program to the other without having that intermediary step. So that's what that's all about for me. There you go. Anyone else on that? Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, Wendy, I sort of find it redundant with Lightroom too. Like, I mean, it has its uses when you're moving between more than one program, but I'm curious to see, oh, and that's the other thing you can see that I do like is that you can see your Creative Cloud libraries. So I can see color themes that I've saved and patterns that I've saved and templates that I've made. And that is something that when you are in a subscription-based model, you do get that Creative Cloud, and I can tag certain templates that I really use a lot. And like I have a series that I use this one template for all the time. Well, I can just easily pull it up instead of trying to find it. It's automatically in my libraries. And that's the only place you can really see that unless you're going into Lightroom, into the menu and clicking it through. But in libraries and bridges, the only place you can really see everything you have while in your computer system and not so much in your software. Any other questions? I think we're kind of wrapping it up here. I sort of want to, I believe Jennifer is going to be taking over in a couple minutes, but I want to make sure that I covered everything that you guys had questions on that you needed. Okay, good. Kathy, I'm glad you learned a lot. No problem, Kim. No problem. All right. I think we did everything we're supposed to do. Go us. There you go. Okay. No problem, Sonia. No problem. Let's stop sharing there. And okay, I think in a couple of minutes, I'm actually going to, because Jennifer is taking over, I'm going to have to actually ask everybody to leave the meeting. We do stop the recording, and this kind of it's a way that we wrap up the recording and have it be presentable for the website. So I'm going to go ahead and I'd say probably in like 2 or 3 minutes, I'll close everything out. But thank you guys very much. And, and you're welcome, Pat. And I'll see you guys if you're going to roll over and be with Jennifer. I'm going to be there in a couple minutes too. So there you go. No problem, Shannon. There you go. Bye, Tara. And I hope you like your gift certificate. Make sure you email Jennifer on it, okay? Tara? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just on mute.
Oh, okay. I just wanted, sorry, I didn't even scroll up at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I'm all excited about brushes now, so.
Oh, brushes are so great. Yeah, love the brushes. So good. I'm glad that you have it. No problem, Kamal. Okay, well, everybody have a great night. I'm going to go ahead and end us up here so we can start doing Jennifer's. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Bye.